There's too many of you crying. Brother, there's far too many of you dying. You know we got to find a way to bring some love here today. Brother, we don't need to escalate. War is not the answer, for only love can conquer hate. You know we've got to find a way to bring some love in here today. Picking lines, looking signs, don't punish me with brutality. Talk to me so you can see what's going on. What's going on? What's going on? Mother, everybody thinks we're wrong. But who are they to judge us? Simply 'cause our hair is too long. You know we got to find a way to bring some understanding here today. Crooked lines and crooked signs don't punish me with brutality. Oh, talk to me so you can see what's going on. What's going on? What's going on? What's going on?
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Reverend Kimberly Tomchek Carlson, and it is my honor to serve as your Minister of Faith Formation. Our opening words are by Reverend Kiyama Raman. Now is the time to call on the memories of ancestors who thought they could not walk another step toward freedom, and yet they did. It is the time and place to call on the memories of the ancestors who, when the darkness in their lives threatened to take away the hope and the light, reached a little deeper and prayed yet another prayer. It is that time and place to remember those who came through the long night to witness another sunrise. It is that time and place to remember the oceans of tears shed to deliver us to this time, to remember bent knees and bowed backs, to remember fervent voices asking, begging, and beseeching for loved ones sold off. Time to remember their laugh and their joys. Though they had less and little reason for optimism, they stayed on the path to a better day. Time to hold the steadfast hands and hearts and prayers of the ancestors that have brought us this far. Time to make them proud and show them and ourselves what we are made of. Time to show them that their prayers and sacrifices and lives were not in vain and did not go unnoticed, nor have they been forgotten. Did you not know this day would come? Did you not know that we would have to change places? Did you not know that just as our ancestors were delivered, that we will also be delivered? Have you not seen the greatness and the power of the creative energy in the universe called God that moves and has its being through human agency? Have you not seen God in your neighbor's face, in the homeless, in the battered woman, in the trafficked child, in the undocumented worker, in the dispossessed? It is that time and that place to know that it is our turn, and we must leave a legacy for our children and all the children. Amen, and blessed be. Please rise in body and spirit for our first hymn, our opening hymn, "Oh, I Woke Up This Morning." It is in your insert.
Oh, I woke up this morning with my mind stayed on freedom. Woke up this morning with my mind stayed on freedom. Woke up this morning with my mind stayed on freedom. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. I was walking and talking with my mind stayed on freedom. Walking and talking with my mind stayed on freedom. Walking and talking with my mind stayed on freedom. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. I'm singing and praying with my mind stayed on freedom. Singing and praying with my mind stayed on freedom. Singing and praying with my mind stayed on freedom. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. I woke up this morning with my mind stayed on freedom. Woke up this morning with my mind stayed on freedom. Woke up this morning with my mind stayed on freedom. Hallelujah,
I would like to invite Jamie Lynn Tatera up to do our Time for All Ages. Jamie Lynn is a member and an author and a teacher.
So the story, Snuggles Stayed Close, has a protagonist of Flame the Dragon, and also another protagonist of Snuggles, who has the power of presence. And then there's a host of other characters. There's feelings animals that have habits with their feelings, and there's resilience animals that have helpful habits but aren't attuned to what Flame needs. Snuggle Stayed Close by Jamie Lynn Tatera, inspired by Corey Dorfeld's book, The Rabbit Listened. Flame the dragon dreamed of running through tunnels. So Flame decided to build a tunnel out of blocks. Flame carefully stacked and connected the blocks together, and Flame felt so happy. Auntie, the ant, came by and accidentally knocked it down. Flame was so upset. Flame's friends tried to help. Sunny came by and said, "Look on the bright side. You still have blocks. You can try again." But Flame wasn't ready to try again. So Sunny went behind a cloud. Spots, the giraffe, came by and said, "Let's talk about what happened. Name it to tame it." But Flame wasn't ready to talk about what happened. So Spots went to a forest to eat leaves. Buddy, the dog, came next. Remember, everybody struggles sometimes. But Flame wasn't ready to remember that. So Buddy went to join Spots in the forest. Doodles, the dolphin, came by to help. "Come on, let's go to the forest. You can climb a tree." But Flame wasn't ready to climb a tree. The feelings animals tried to help too. Bear said, "Let's scream and stomp our feet." Beaver said, "Let's think about what happened over and over so it never happens again." Deer said, "Let's cry and hide." And Chameleon said, "Let's pretend this never happened." But Flame wasn't ready to try anyone else's ideas, so the feelings animals left too. And Flame was alone with the sad, sad mess. Flame began to cry. And while Flame cried, Snuggles, the bunny, came close. Just sitting and breathing together, being present. And Snuggles stayed close when Flame shouted. Snuggles stayed close when Flame pretended nothing had happened. Snuggles stayed close when Flame thought about it, talked about it, and remembered that everyone struggles sometimes. Snuggles stayed close when Flame climbed a tree and started to look on the bright side of things. And Snuggles stayed close when Flame decided to build the tunnel again. Auntie, Bear, Chameleon, Deer, Beaver, Spots, Buddy, Doodles, and Snuggles all helped. The new tunnel was even better than the last one. Flame smiled and said, "Thank you." Then they all went to the forest to play. The end.
Thank you, Jamie. We are entering a time of contemplation, which will be followed by silence, and then the seated singing of our centering hymn, Spirit of Life. Make yourself comfortable in this shared space in the sanctuary of people gathered here today, hoping and hurting. Feel the breath in your body. Feel your feet, your hands. Dear Spirit of light and love that is inside every one of us, help us pause here and be in this moment together. Let us feel the Spirit beating within our hearts and our minds, our reeling minds. Take a moment, dear ones, and feel your heart beat, your pulse, your breath. You've chosen to be here in this moment. Let us be fully here. We grieve for the suffering in our own lives, in our neighbors' lives, for those who are hungry and hurting in the wild world that we are part of. We are deeply interconnected. We are each other's keepers. We are heartbroken as we reel from the news coming from our neighbor state, Minnesota. We feel the aches of those who are victims of that unnecessary violence. We lament the abuse of power and weep for our country. We ask for the courage to hold the week's struggles and failings and sorrows. May we continue again and again to hold on to hope, knowing that life is also full of grace and children's smiles and joy. Counting our blessings, seeing our privilege, help us find our hearts, our centers, our hope. Help us recognize the sacred within ourselves and the beloved community as we continue to work to transform our world. Blessed be, and amen.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the First Unitarian Society of Milwaukee. I'm Jessie DeLiberti, and I am pleased to serve as your worship associate. We are a faith community of many identities. We welcome people of all genders, sexualities, ages, races, ethnicities, histories, abilities, and bodies. We welcome your mind, your heart, and your spirit. We welcome all you are carrying with you today and all your heart longs to set down. We welcome all the people watching online as we live stream this service. Hello, online folks. We enthusiastically welcome guests joining us today. If you are a guest visiting in person and want to connect with us, please fill out a welcome card located in the pew rack in front of you and drop it in the offering plate that will come around in a few minutes. If you are visiting online and want to connect, a link to connect with us will soon appear in the chat for you to click on and fill out. Someone from church will reach out to you to connect to you. Someone from church, I already said that. After the service, we invite you to join us for a social hour across the hall in the Leanhouse Common Room. Some accessibility notes. Hearing assist devices and large print hymnals and orders of service are at the back of the sanctuary, along with worship activity bags for children and anyone who wants them. There is a fragrance-free area in the right front pews. If you are watching online, you can enable YouTube's closed captioning on your viewing device. Come raise your voices for peace and justice with the newly formed MKE Justice Singers on January 29th or February 3rd in the sanctuary from 6 to 7 p.m. Come to either or both sessions, no RSVP required. Join us today to celebrate Imbolc Bridget's Day, 12:30 p.m. in Max Auto Hall. Whether you're interested in pagan practices or you have been part of many practices, you're invited to join us. Feel free to bring an item for the altar or something to share for the potluck, or just bring yourself. Winter 2026 Journey to Membership will be held Saturday, February 7th, 9 a.m. to 1 p.m., and Wednesday, February 11th, 6 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. Have you considered becoming a member of the First Unitarian Society of Milwaukee? Our winter 2026 Journey to Membership sessions are fast approaching, and we would be delighted to have you join us to consider membership this winter. These sessions are led by our ministers and staff, where we explore Unitarian Universalist beliefs, history, value, and our social justice and anti-racism frameworks. We also discuss the meaning of membership and ways to get connected here at First Church. I'd like to invite the Faith Formation team up now to do an announcement.
Okay, so we've got kids coming, and some like games, and some like crafts, and some just want to wiggle, and the preschoolers need extra hands, and I think the glue sticks are around here somewhere. I love this, I really do, but I cannot do it all.
Sounds like you're trying to be the whole program.
Well, somebody has to. I need leaders in multiple places at the same time. Apparently I need a clone.
What you actually need is a little less cloning and a little more sharing.
Sharing? Sharing what? I don't even have a formal lesson plan.
Exactly.
Wait, that's not helping.
Sure it is. Faith formation here isn't about perfect plans. It's about showing up. A couple of people to play games with the kids, a couple of people to help with the craft, a couple of people to sit with the preschoolers, and in the nursery. That's it.
That's really allowed? Like, to ask for help from anyone?
Very allowed.
So, I don't need experts?
Nope.
Or weekly commitments?
Nope.
Or a cape?
Strongly discouraged.
So, what you're saying is, this works if lots of people bring one small thing?
Exactly. Some people like stories. Some like games. Some are great with little kids. Some just like being a calm adult in the room. Every piece matters.
So you're telling me the thing that's missing
Isn't more work.
It's you. 1 hour, one role, your choice.
If you've ever thought, I could do crafts, I could do games, then you already belong.
Come help us build faith together.
We've got room for you.
We hope you enjoyed this little skit and will consider trying out a volunteership with Faith Formation in the next couple of months. You can check in with Fiona at the faith formation table after any service to get the sign-up link. Thanks.
All right, I invite you to share in our first church purpose by joining me in a unison affirmation of our mission, which is printed in your order of service. We gather to nurture the spirit, engage the mind, and inspire actions. Every week, we practice our values through sharing our resources. Our pledges are at the core of our spiritual practice of generosity. In addition, the church shares half of all non-pledge cash in our offering plate with a community organization practicing our value of interdependence. Today, we share the plate with Street Angels, a mobile outreach organization dedicated to assisting individuals in ending their unsheltered homelessness. The offering will now be gratefully received as we sing seated hymn number 169, We Shall Overcome. I invite all children, youth, and faith formation volunteers to sing the first verse and then follow Fiona to the Lean House Common Room and then downstairs for faith formation. If your child needs to check in, please join them. May the practice of giving bring us joy. A couple weeks ago, I stood here and told you about how I changed careers and how that change ultimately changed me for the better. Today, I want to talk about that messy middle, the part where things felt uncertain, uncomfortable, and honestly a little scary. At the time, I was working at a pretty prestigious science facility doing cutting-edge research. I was a lab rat, sure, but I was doing meaningful work. It wasn't the dream, but it felt closer. Then, very suddenly, the rug was pulled out from under me when I got fired. The official reason was budget cuts, and that may have been partly true, but I also knew that one member of the team didn't like working with a gay woman. I had been out only a few years, and I thought I had been very careful about who I had told. Apparently, I wasn't careful enough. So there I was, unemployed again. I told myself I'd been through this before, I'd find the next thing, except this time, the next thing didn't come. I applied everywhere, jobs I was qualified for, jobs I was overqualified for. The interviews just didn't happen. Discouragement set in. My self-esteem took hit after hit after hit. And that familiar black cloud of depression started creeping back in. Then one day, a friend called me and told me he was going to a local community theater's tryouts for their One Act Festival and said, "You should come with me." I told him, absolutely not. I would not get cast in one. I had never acted, I wasn't confident. Heck, I call them tryouts instead of auditions. And that's something I still get teased for. But the real reason was that little monster in my head, the one that said, "You're not good enough, no one wants to be around you, why even try?" And Clarence, bless him, told me I was completely full of it. He said I'd be great and needed to get my butt out there. And my long-suffering girlfriend wholeheartedly agreed and more or less kicked me out the door. It turns out I was right. I wasn't cast in one play. I was cast in 3. I ended up being voted the audience's favorite supporting character. I discovered that I loved acting and that I'm actually really good at it. I made people laugh, I made friends, and perhaps most importantly to me, it was one of the last things that my stepdad got to see before he passed. Me happy, confident, surrounded by joy. Around that same time, I finally got an interview for the job that I have now. Would I have gotten it without Clarence's call? Maybe, probably. But I know this. I walked into that interview more grounded, more confident, and more myself because someone made a small choice to reach out. One phone call, one invitation, one act of belief in me. Small acts matter. A call, an invitation, a strong nudge out the door. You never know when something small might change the whole direction in a life. And sometimes the most faithful thing we can do is simply say to someone, "I see you, come with me."
None of us are free. 'cause the world is getting smaller each passing day. Passing day. It's time to start making changes. It's time for all of us to realize where the truth is shining bright before your eyes. None of us are free. None of us are free. None of us are free. If one of us is chained, none of us are free. 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 If one of us is chained, none of us are free. 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 If one of us is chained, none of us are free. 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 If one of us is chained, none of us are free. 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 If one of us is chained, none of us are free.
Thank you. It did occur to me when I titled this sermon Small But Mighty that it might sound like a message about how our children shape us with their mighty presence and influence. And as your minister of faith formation, I can tell you that would be a wonderfully rich topic. But that is not the small but mighty I am reflecting on today. Perhaps that will be for another happier Sunday. Today's small but mighty is our own faith tradition of Unitarian Universalism. Despite our relatively small size in the larger religious landscape, the Unitarian Universalist influence on American history and culture has been remarkably significant. Our power comes from the ways we have championed social justice, intellectual freedom, and religious liberalism. It comes from the courage of our ancestors through their words and their deeds and their choices to shape a faith that insists on human dignity and centers love as a force for liberation. Our spiritual ancestors were at the forefront of abolition, women's suffrage, LGBTQ+ rights, public education, and environmental protection. We are a tradition that blends reason and compassion, humanist and Christian roots, and a wide diversity of spiritual understandings into a living, evolving, pluralistic faith. And yes, our UU tradition has even stood up to fascism before. Now, I admit I'm a bit of a history nerd. I mean, really. I love tracing those threads of influence, those small turning points that ripple through time. I love uncovering the names and the stories that have left living legacies of decency and justice and love. These quiet forces, these overlooked acts of people being brave and decent and good. These small but mighty moments, they are at the heart of the story I want to tell you today. Reverend Tandy Rogers is the teacher who taught me to claim our UU ancestors, to tell their stories and to hold them close. I think she knew their acts of courage and conviction would offer wisdom and inspiration and comfort when we find ourselves weary and heartbroken. May their presence not only bring solace today, but light the way for what comes next. In 1846, 4 years after the first Unitarian sermon was preached here in Milwaukee, planting the seed for what would become eventually this congregation, Henry David Thoreau walked from his cabin at Walden Pond into the nearby city of Concord, Massachusetts, where he promptly landed in jail. Thoreau's crime was his refusal to pay his taxes. He had not forgotten them. He was choosing not to financially support a government that sanctioned slavery and provoked a war by invading a neighboring country, Mexico. That small act of resistance in his town grew far beyond Concord when Thoreau wrote about his decision and his experience in an essay called On the Duty of Civil Disobedience. In it, he condemns American democracy for being compliant, ruled not by justice but by a tyrannical majority that prospers while using canned rhetoric about freedom and liberty to hide behind. I find those hauntingly familiar today, in a time when far too many Americans seem willing to tolerate cruelty and inhumanity so long as some prosper and can still claim the label patriot. Thoreau wrote, "Let your life be a counter-friction to stop the machine. What I have to do, I see, at any rate, is that I do not lend myself to the wrong which I condemn." Those are wise words to guide us. Like Timothy Snyder's warning in On Tyranny, do not obey in advance, reminding us that we have the power to slow down the rise of authoritarianism. We do this by resisting the oppression we witness, by naming it, by challenging it, and by refusing. When confusion from the never-ending news cycle and exhaustion and it is the first wave of oppression. It is trying to claim our agency. When we fail to claim our values through our words and our actions, we inadvertently yield to the power to those who seek to diminish our freedoms and long before their authority is really absolute. Historian Brent Powell notes that Thoreau, he was the first American to define and use civil disobedience as a means of protest. What began as one man's refusal to yield to the majority's injustice became an idea that continues to influence conscience-driven resistance around the world. That conviction that a moral minority must not bend simply because a majority is louder or more powerful. Thoreau and his friend Ralph Waldo Emerson were born and raised Unitarian. Reverend Dana Howard states, modern-day Unitarian Universalism was in many ways started by Thoreau and Emerson as a branch of the tree of the historic Christianity that we are now the end of. Emerson points us toward a unifying force greater than ourselves, and Thoreau shows us that we must practice our theology in the here and the now. The result of Thoreau's influence, Dana says, is UU activism grounded in self-reflection. Small things can grow, and that essay that Thoreau wrote grew in the minds and the hearts of others who were inspired to shape their activism in civil disobedience. Mahatma Gandhi, who fought for the rights of the poorest classes, opposed the discriminatory caste system, worked for Hindu-Muslim unity and India's independence, admitted that, quote, Thoreau's ideas greatly influenced the movement in India. Reverend Martin Luther King Jr., who created moral guidelines for acting nonviolent in the heart of the civil rights movement, built his ideas upon the work of Gandhi, whose work was built upon Thoreau. In King's autobiography, he says, quote, during my early college days, I read Thoreau's essay on civil disobedience for the first time. I became convinced then that non-cooperation with evil is as much a moral obligation as is cooperation with good. One person's act of defiance can spark a thread of influence that reaches others across time. Each individual contribution strengthens the next, and together, these acts collectively help bend the moral arc of the universe toward justice. And that powerful turn of phrase, the moral arc of the universe bends towards justice, it's widely associated with Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, yet its origins go back to a Unitarian minister with a transcendentalist history, the Reverend Theodore Parker, a contemporary of Thoreau and Emerson. Reverend Theodore Parker was a devoted abolitionist and a leader of the Boston Vigilance Committee, an underground network that helped hundreds of enslaved people escape to freedom. At that time in American history, white Unitarians and Universalists, well, they had inconsistent responses to what we now recognize as the evil of slavery. Divisions in our country grew in 1850 when the Fugitive Slave Act passed, making capturing and returning people who had escaped slavery federal law, requiring all citizens and officials to assist in their persecution while denying them due process. This looks like bounty hunters forcibly seeking out people of color while demanding their neighbors be complicit to their capture without due process. And it is hard to not hear the echoes of this dynamic in the actions we are witnessing today, especially this weekend in Minnesota. Some Unitarian and Universalists stayed on the sidelines, but others became abolitionists. When Anthony Burns escaped from slavery and fled to Boston, he was arrested. Boston's Black community and white abolitionists rushed to the courthouse. An estimated 2,000 anti-slavery protesters mobbed Court Square that night and attempted to free Anthony Burns. And on the eve of Burns' sentencing, a crowd of 5,000 assembled at Boston's Faneuil Hall. And there, Theodore Parker told them, "I am an old man. I have heard hurrahs and cheers for liberty many times. I have not seen a great many deeds done for liberty. I ask you, are we to have deeds as well as words?" Parker's urgency, his words and witness, joined with others who refused to obey the Fugitive Slave Act, helped ignite a broad pushback about an unjust law in Boston and then across the country. Their defiance helped shape our faith into one that bears courage to witness systematic injustice wherever it takes root. One courageous act emboldens the next as each of us learns to trust that persistent inner voice, to honor what is right, to care for one another, and to center humanity with love. Many of us, we found our way here to Unitarian Universalism seeking sanctuary and community in the face of oppression and hardship we knew in our own lives. And within this sanctuary, under this roof, in the rooms of this church, we discover companions who allow us to be vulnerable in our struggles. Here, we share our grief, we lay down our burdens, and we find others who will hold them with us. And the rooms in this church are named for our ancestors. Our theme circles meet in the Brown Room, named for Reverend Olympia Brown. Olympia Brown was one of the first women to graduate from college in the United States. She became the first woman minister in the United States in 1863, and she was ordained in the Universalist Church. Olympia Brown served the Church of the Good Shepherd in Racine, Wisconsin, today lovingly renamed Olympia Brown UU Church. And I know many in this congregation began their faith journey in those walls. If you're in here, go ahead and give a shout out or wave your hands. Who are you? There's a few in the back. Your roots, they're part of this story too. Olympia eventually felt called to step away from parish ministry, not because she was tired, but because the fire for women's suffrage simply outgrew the pulpit, and she became the president of Wisconsin's Women's Suffrage Association, leading for nearly 3 decades, from 1884 to 1912. Imagine the persistence that took. Imagine continuing year after year when change came so slowly you could barely see it. She traveled across the country, speaking in small towns and big cities, urging states to recognize women's right to vote. She was one of 1,000 women who marched on Washington, demanding that President Woodrow Wilson finally listen. And she lived long enough to see the 19th Amendment ratified in 1920. After a lifetime to being told she needed to wait, she witnessed that door open. What a long, twisted, unfinished journey women's rights have been, and that journey continues. Just this week, our own Patricia McFarland carried her small but mighty voice up to the state capitol, standing up for reproductive freedom with the same kind of courage that Olympia carried a century ago. Woo-hoo! Those stories braid together the past and the present, the ancestor and the neighbor, reminding us that our struggle is never one person's work and that each generation has its moment to rise. Small, brave acts are fueled by mighty, mighty values. The young room, the large room downstairs where our children are now gathered for faith formation, which is also where I can usually be found most Sunday mornings, teaching them about these UU values and history, is named for Whitney Young Jr., a civil rights leader whose impact was profound, even if history doesn't always speak his name loudly enough. Raise your hand if you know who Whitney Young is. Yeah, not known. Whitney Young was one of the most influential yet overlooked leaders of the civil rights era. He was an executive director of the National Urban League. He transformed the organization into a powerhouse of economic justice. He believed that civil rights had to be more than laws on paper. They had to be lived in real access to good jobs, decent housing, and quality education. He saw clearly that dignity required not only freedom from oppression, but also the resources to build a life. And there's part of the story that feels very tender to me. During the civil rights movement, Whitney Young spoke right here at First Church. Imagine that, his voice echoing these very walls. And that visit likely happened because of his friendship with Reverend John Cyrus, who served this congregation from 1955 to 1981. Their connection went all the way back to the Omaha Urban League. John was a member, and Whitney's children attended Sunday school at the First Unitarian Church of Omaha, where Reverend Cyrus was then serving. So in a real relational way, our congregation is woven into Whitney Young's story, and his children once sat in rooms much like our young room today. Whitney's work didn't make headlines, but it moved mountains. He worked directly with business leaders, and US presidents pushed for fair employment practices, job training, federal investment in urban communities. He was called the inside man of the civil rights movement because he stepped into boardrooms and government offices where decisions were made and insisted they make room for justice. His efforts shaped the war on poverty, expanded opportunities for Black Americans, and brought civil rights into the very structures that had long excluded them. And now, generations later, our children learn and play and grow in a room bearing his name. His story is a reminder that justice work happens in many forms, some loud, some quiet, all essential, and that sometimes the greatest stories come to those who insist on bringing love and equity to tables of power. Last week, on the heels of our nonviolent resistant training for people of faith, Reverend Jennifer also spoke about other Unitarian Universalists engaged in the civil rights movement. She lifted up Viola Louisa, a Unitarian Universalist housewife from Michigan who was murdered in Alabama for answering the call to Selma. Her death ignited another wave of righteous resistance, just as many other UUs and people of faith who journeyed to Selma returned home and inspired their own communities to join that struggle. Can you see yourself in these stories? I can. I see you showing up, feeding the hungry, tutoring young people, protesting, giving what you can when you can, heartbroken and heartstrong, doing the daily work of becoming good ancestors. I want to be clear, even though history tends to often remember just the individuals, nothing is ever accomplished alone. Every movement is a tapestry of people who share ideas and values, who plant seeds for a future that they cannot fully see but deeply hope for. We are part of that same lineage. This is our time now, our moment to do what we can, individually and collectively. Not all of us can march, not all of us can give money, not all of us can speak to crowds or write letters or organize an action, but all of us can do something, and together we can do it all. As we go, we teach our children and those walking beside us how to continue shaping the beloved community we dream of. One act of courage, one act of compassion, one act of solidarity at a time. The Unitarian Universalist legacy is long. It turns out too long for one sermon. Though it does hurt my nerdy history heart to leave out so many good ancestors. But before we extinguish our chalice, I need to tell you how the chalice was created to fight fascism. The Unitarian Service Committee was born in 1940, in a moment when the world was cracking open. The power of Nazi Germany was spreading fast, and thousands of people were desperately trying to get out and escape the grip of occupation. Into that urgency stepped Reverend Charles Joy, who was the first commissioner of the Unitarian Service Committee. From his office in Lisbon, the last open port in Europe, Reverend Joy saw a fragile and secret network of couriers and brave local allies, and together they worked to secure travel documents, self-passage papers, and visas, which could mean the difference between life and death. The Unitarian Service Committee, though, well, it was new, and it was unknown, and it was untested, and that made their work hard. It put them at a disadvantage because establishing trust had to be done over the barriers of language and nationality, and that could be the difference between life and death. Reverend Joy knew that that trust was not a small thing. It could be everything. He wrote, "When a document may keep a man out of jail, give him standing with governments and police, it is important that it look important." So he turned to Hans Deutsch. Hans Deutsch was an Austrian artist and himself was a refugee who had fled from the Nazis. And he asked him to create a symbol to be used on official documents. Deutsch did. He created a simple, powerful image, a chalice with a bright flame. And the flaming chalice began as a drawing, just a drawing, but a drawing to fight fascism. A beacon created by a refugee for refugees. And today, we still light it. We light it when we gather together to mark our time and to hold the values that we still hold dear. Now, this weekend, our beloved Reverend Jennifer answered the clergy call to travel to Minnesota, to learn, to prepare, to witness, to stand in solidarity as a part of a day of truth and freedom. And I followed the protests closely all day. And she reached out to let me know she was safe. She was surrounded by over 200 UU clergy and many other faith leaders and 50,000 marchers moving as one body and one voice, determined. And I know many of you are also protesting in solidarity here in Milwaukee, standing in the cold, holding signs, singing, chanting, showing up with your whole hearts. One of the signs that caught my attention simply said, "When cruelty becomes normal, compassion looks radical." And then yesterday morning, we learned that Alex Jeffrey Petty, an ICU nurse, a young man who graduated from high school in Green Bay, was killed by ICE agents. And our hearts broke open again. There is no justification for this. There are no words to make it right. There are only tears. And then after the tears, action. Many of us will gather at the ICE headquarters again this coming Wednesday. And the words on that sign keep echoing. When cruelty becomes normal, compassion looks radical. Friends, we have a responsibility, rooted in faith, rooted in love, to center the margins of society, to give voice to the suffering that too many people are forced to in every system, who decides who is worthy and who is disposable. Each moment in history asks us to live into our values in ways we might have never imagined and do not always welcome. But history keeps asking anyway, because the shape of human history is always held in human hands, in our hands. There are a million small steps towards creating beloved community. What steps will you take? You don't have to know the whole path. You only need to take the next faithful step. And as you do, may you draw near an ancestor, someone whose small but mighty courage made a difference. Bring them close. Let them sit beside you when you feel powerless or numb or furious. Let yourself lament. Let yourself feel righteous anger. It is a sign that your heart is still awake. Find a way to express it that honors your spirit and the life within you. And then, the best you can, center love, especially for those who do not yet understand, whose fear is still louder than their hope. Trust your spirit. Trust your longing for justice. Trust that you are part of a long and living story of people choosing compassion in a cruel time. Because compassion may look radical now, but it has always been the flame that saves us. May we be brave and kind and find a way forward, united in love. Blessed be. Beloveds, we stand today in a long line of people who face the cruelties of their time. These are our ancestors in faith, not perfect, not fearless, but steadfast. They did not wait to feel ready. They did not wait to feel certain. They simply took the next faithful step. And now it is our turn. We are the ones alive at this moment in history. We are the ones who must decide what to do with the heartbreak we carry, the anger we feel, and the love that refuses to leave our chests when the world tries to make us numb. We cannot undo the harm that has been done, but we can refuse to let it have the last word. We can show up, we can speak out, we can link arms, we can feed and teach and march and vote and comfort and create and disrupt. And we can build the beloved community, not in grand gestures, but in 1,000 small acts of courage. And we do not do it alone. We do it with each other, learning and listening and lifting and stumbling and rising again. May you draw the strength from those who came before. May you let your righteous anger be a compass, not a cage. May your compassion be bold enough to look radical in a cruel time. May love be the flame that you carry into every dark place. And may we together take our place in a long, ongoing story of justice, one step, one act, one heartbeat at a time. May it be so. Please stand with me and let us sing together one of my favorites, Lead with Love.
You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Don't give up hope. Don't give up hope. You're not alone. You're not alone. Don't you give up. Don't you give up. Keep moving on. Keep moving on. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Lift up your eyes. Lift up your eyes. Don't you despair. Don't you despair. Look up ahead. Look up ahead. The path is there. The path is there. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. I know you're scared. I know you're scared. And I'm scared too. And I'm scared too. But here I am. But here I am. Right next to you. Right next to you. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Don't give up hope. Don't give up hope. You're not alone. You're not alone. Don't you give up. Don't you give up. Keep moving on. Keep moving on. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead